Think about for a second, there's a term that I don't like. It's called anti-Semite. Now, the reason I don't like it is because I don't know what a Semite is. It sounds like some sort of bug. You never introduce yourself and you say, hi, I'm a Semite, what are you? Or I'm Semitic, what are you? Is there such a thing as a pro-Semite or only an anti-Semite? It sounds like you would walk into a drugstore asking for the anti-Semite spritz so you could get rid of all the Semites that are crawling around in your house. And in truth, there are some people, and there are many people, and some nations that have looked at the Jewish people as a problem, as a difficulty, as a certain parasite that indeed they would wish to get rid of by spraying some anti-Semite spritz. But we still exist. We're still here. And we face the world, and we snob them, and we defy them, and we're here anyways. What is it? What is it that makes people anti-Semitic? What is it that if somebody finds out that you're Jewish, all of a sudden your relationship is terminated? What is it about the Jew that brings out animosity? Okay, he shares a different belief than you. I understand. You know what? There are many religions in the world, and they all share different beliefs than you. There is Buddhism, there's Christianity, there's Muslims, there's atheists, there's cults. So what is it about the Jew that brings out anti-Semitism? It's not the big nose. I know this for a fact, because Pinocchio was very well liked. So if Pinocchio made it, then the Jew could make it too. So apparently it's not Pinocchio, it's not the big nose. What is it that makes the Jew hated? The answer is not important. But understanding that the Jew has something, some spark, he represents something to the world that for some reason, which possibly cannot be explained, that spark elicits anti-Semitism, animosity, hatred, discomfort. That's enough of a reason to look into yourself and say, what is it that I have? What am I? Why is it that when I go through a metal detector, all of a sudden it starts beeping? I want to discover what I have inside me that triggers this beeping. The same thing is with a Jew in the world. If for whatever reason there is anti-Semitism, then we need to look inside ourselves and say, what is it about the Jew? What is it inside me that I have that people are hating? It's nothing to do with the way you act or the way you speak. And it has nothing to do with Jews are too powerful or too great or too narcissists. This has nothing to do with anything, because before Jews had any prominent positions in the world, for generations, the hatred existed. Jews were in the ghetto. Jews were not allowed to be social, to have any status, to have any power. And we're talking about in countries across the world. The Jew was always the most despised. He was always secluded, pushed off somewhere in a ghetto, in a little Jewish enclave. He was not allowed to mix in with the rest of the world. And anti-Semitism was just as prevalent. So what is it? It has nothing to do with what we do. It has nothing to do with our opinions. It has nothing to do with what we say. The hatred is real. The hatred is something that exists because we are something, because we represent something. What is it? Look inside yourself. Look into who you are. Look into what you have. You have a spark inside you called Jew. The Gemara tells us that the word Sinai, from the word Har Sinai, the Mount Sinai, is from the word Sinah, hatred. Because when the Torah came down to the world, hatred for the Jewish people came down to the world. The Torah, which is one with the Jewish heart, brought down a certain amount of animosity. Why? One explanation is because we are the conscience of the world. We remind the world that there's a God. We remind the world that there's a purpose, there's meaning, that there is a greater will, a divine will for what the world is supposed to be and for what humanity is supposed to be. The people of the book, the light unto the nations, means that people see us and see in us as a representation of a higher will, of a certain amount of elevated existence is supposed to happen because of us, in us. And that's difficult, because if you live in the world and you want to chill and you want to live it up in a lawn chair on the beach, do what you want, do your own thing, and all of a sudden somebody passes by who reminds you, hey, you can't just do what you want because there's a higher goal. There's something expected of you. There's something wanted from you. There's expectations. There's deadlines. There's a God in the world and he demands something. You get very nervous. Wait a minute, I'm chilling, I'm on vacation. Stop reminding me of work. The Jew is that conscience. Every time he walks by somebody, people have reminders. It's like, what's that called? The subliminal messaging. He doesn't even know he says it, but the Jew stands for, represents the God. He represents Hashem and his will. And when people see that, when people taste that, they're not interested, they're not excited about it. Another reason is because the Jew has to be the light in the darkness. A Jew is supposed to be living on a higher status, on a more elevated level. He represents the kingdom of Hashem. He is the Prince of God. He cannot, in a certain sense, submit himself to the low lifes or the lower level of living the way he wants, because there's something demanded of him. When people see that, when people experience that, that's not pleasant for them. That brings about a certain amount of animosity. You know, when you read the papers, it's interesting. You could read about a guy named Mark Lesser, not Jewish, and he did something wrong. He stole, he murdered, he didn't give his taxes. Nothing is written about his religion, his beliefs, nothing. They just say, this man did something wrong. That's what the papers say. When it's a Jew, when it says Mr. Yisrael Weisbergerstein did it, all of a sudden, it's all over the papers. Front page, Orthodox rabbi. Of course, it's not Orthodox. He has a beard. He wears a kippah, but Orthodox rabbi must be ordained because he has a beard. Orthodox rabbi doesn't pay his taxes back. Why? Why is that? Why do people make such a big deal about it if it's a Jew? And the answer is because you're supposed to be better than that. Because we are supposed to be better than that. If non-Jews, if people that hate us know that, if that's the cause for a certain amount of animosity, because you're supposed to be better, you represent something bigger and higher, so why don't you live up to it? Then stop for a second and think, if that's what the world looks at me and thinks to themselves, that I'm supposed to be better, then perhaps I should look into myself and say, wait a minute, maybe I should be better. Maybe I should find out, what is this all about? If the world says that I am an image of God, and that in a certain sense brings out a certain amount of uncomfortable discomfort because they say we're not interested in the reminder, then I have to ask myself, What is it that I have? Which reminders do I have of God? What does God want from me? To find out how God exists inside me. He wants something from me. He desires something from me. And I will learn that I am a representative of God. I am the son of God. I am the prince of God. I am the deputy of God in a world that belongs to him.